Hi Loita, hi guys, and welcome back to One Thinking Aloud with me, Claire. You join me on a slightly grey Sunday, but I am sat by the window trying to get some bit of daylight. So thinking about what I was going to talk about today, I did the usual thing of looking at my list in one of my many notebooks. But I always found that the best, I didn't want to work from a list. I don't just want to work from through the topics, as it were. So I spent a bit of time just sitting and trying to be in the moment and waiting for inspiration, because that's when the best stuff comes. And the inspiration came in the form of my neighbour's cat, who was just sat in the field. I won't turn the camera around, because even if I do, all you'll see is tiny little dot, because he's quite far away. Anyway, and he completely took my attention, and I went from being like, don't know what to talk about, but I didn't want to make a video, to like completely, oh look, there he is. What's he doing? He's a real hunter. What is it? Love the sinner, hate the sin. I've always felt that about my cats. I love cats. Wherever I see them, my heart just goes, and opens up. I absolutely love them. They are my spirit animal. But I don't really love that they are murderous little creatures. It's not so bad if they eat everything, but, anybody that's a cat owner knows they don't. A lot of it is just sport. Anyway, so I thought, attention, let's talk about attention, because there's a few times this week when it's really, that specifically as a theme has kind of come to the fore through a couple of things that have happened. Whenever anyone thinks about ADHD, I guess myself included, years ago when there was less information around and you didn't really know a lot about it, was that you just think about that naughty normally a little boy in a class that can't sit still and, can't pay attention and things like that. And, the very name, attention deficit, suggests that, we have an inability to pay attention to something or to stay with it. And that is true to, and it's certainly a dysfunction of our, how do you say it, of our, that part of our kind of processing. And we find it difficult, for example, to do tasks that require splitting our attention. And we certainly find it difficult to stay on task with something that we hate, that is really boring and doesn't spark our interest. Because for us, we have an interest-based system. So if there's something that floats our boat, cats, for example, or a new hobby, a new person, a new friend, someone that we've just met, they get our absolute full attention. And that's where the hyper-focus can kick in. And that's why I've got 1,000 at best half finished projects that I've started and then wandered off because it's got boring, or because something else came along. So sticking with something over the long term is really tricky for us, because our attention goes to the thing that is the most interesting or life-threateningly urgent. Whether that's a deadline, an unpaid bill, or something exciting, then that's where our attention goes. What I find it virtually impossible to pay any attention to anything that isn't there, like right in front of me. And Professor Russell Barkley talks about this really beautifully, because he talks about it in a kind of, in the sense of time and space, and the fact that we just cannot bring enough attention to act on something that isn't imminent. And so for us, the kind of the problem is around perception of time as well. That we've heard about people with time and ADHD and time blindness and how that can be a struggle for us as well. So, but it's not quite, it's not as, I guess what I wanted to talk about is that can be a downside, obviously, because it can make our lives really chaotic and disorganized and filled with red letters and debt that didn't need to be accrued and pissed off friends and family because we never get in touch with them because they're not in front of us, relationships that have kind of gone by the wayside, all of those things, you know, drawers and cupboards full of equipment for things that will never, projects that we'll never do or never finish, you know. So there are downsides to it, but there is also there are real positives around that side of our focus where we can bring like really sustained focus to something that really floats our boat. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and how that kind of shows up for me in my life. So I am absolutely, always have been fascinated with just people. I'm really, always have been really interested to understand what makes them tick. It's another ADHD kind of common trait is that we're very, very perceptive. We're very empathetic. We can sense mood shifts in people, or when something is a bit off, or if someone, things that other people just don't seem to have that insight into, you know. So, and it's not just people, it can be a place as well, you know. We kind of seem to be very, very in tune with a lot of the unspoken communication that goes on between people. And I genuinely find the vast majority of people really fascinating, and I love meeting new people, which is why all of my many, many jobs, yet another trait of ADHD, a huge CV with for a lot of people. I loved it. I heard the phrase, oh God, what was it? Was it portfolio career? No. I can't quite remember. It might come to me. It might be that. But anyway, what it basically describes is somebody without a career path, like myself, who's flipped around between loads of different jobs in lots of different places, without any seeming sense of progression. And there really isn't any sense of progression for me when I look at my CV. But the one thing that has been constant throughout it is people. All of the jobs I've had have been focused around working as part of a team, working directly with, whether it's members of the public, like for example, as I do now, or whether it was one on the post, or when I was a counsellor, or when I was supporting small businesses. It's always been around stuff where I get to help and develop and support people in some way, because that feeds me, that nourishes me, and that's where my interest is. And as a result of that, and I think it's a result of that, along with, as I've said in other videos, a deep empathy and compassion that I have for my fellow humans, based on my own experiences of going through difficulties and having challenges, and being on the receiving end of judgment from the world at large, and understanding how misperceptions can be really detrimental to people, and how important it is to try and not bring that to, not be preconceived about how people are or a way that they should be, you know, not to hold prejudices as much as is possible. But it's about that attention really as well. And I notice it hugely At the moment, it's it's writ large, because a lot of my recent jobs before this one, when I was working in a kind of, whether it was a retail environment type thing, I would be on my own most, if not all, of the shift that I'd be working. So the energy that I could bring to that and the experience of the customers and the people that I dealt with was wholly within my kind of control. It wasn't, my attention was completely on them. And this sense of kind of real interest in people means that people responded to that. And really, I remember when I was on the post, people used to ask me, when are you on next? Because I'll come in and do what I need to do at the post office when you're in. And it wasn't because I was any more capable at the job than anyone else doing it. And it certainly wasn't because I had more knowledge than anyone else, because I'd only been there a relatively short time. But what it was about was that they got my full attention, and people feel that. And it's not just people, plants feel that, I've got a couple of orchids in my bathroom here that were looking so, I was still feeding them, watering them, doing all of that, but I wasn't really paying much attention to them. I was just kind of perfunctory. Oh God, I better do that. And for some reason, because of where I've moved them, which is right in front of the toilet where we all spend a bit of time, and in front of one of my favourite posters from my lovely friend Mark, which is like this thing, the invisible things that I put in the loo because I get to look at these amazing graphic images from one of our mutual favourite graphic artists, Andy J. Pizza, shout out. It's in this space where I spend a bit of time, and I consciously try not to take my phone to the loo. Sometimes I take my Kindle, but a lot of the time I just end up sitting there looking at these little pictures. I'll see if I can, maybe I'll take a photo and post it, but I might have to get in touch with the artist first anyway. Or I end up talking to the plants that are in front of it. There are these 3 orchids, and I found myself chatting to them. And when I see them putting out a new leaf or a new bit of growth, I've been like, oh, you're doing so well, you're so beautiful, just talking to them. And all 3 of them have come into bloom. Now, I'm sure there's people listening to this that are just like, yeah, Claire, I know I'm an orchid grower, or I grow them all the time. It's just that they go through dormant periods and then they flower again. And maybe that is the case. But I like to think that it's also because of attention. That is an energy. It's an energy field that we put out. And I certainly recognize that when I'm in the cafe. And I recognize how different it is. It's like polarities apart when I'm on my own or when I'm with my colleague. And that's nothing to do with who my colleague is or anything like that, because she's wonderful. And I'm very lucky to have her as a colleague, and we have a lovely time working together. But it's got everything to do with the fact that when there's someone else there behind the counter with me, we end up giving our attention, most of our attention, to one another. Of course, when customers come in, we deal with them. We make sure that we're serving them, and I'm focused on them in that moment. But what doesn't happen, but then I'll go back to doing what we're doing behind the scenes, as it were, and we'll strike up a conversation, or we'll be chatting about something else together. And so my attention has been, this energy field is now on my colleague and not on the space and the shop and the customers in it. And it's not about talking. In fact, it's more powerful when I'm not talking. So when there's not a lot of people in, or it's a bit quieter, or I've got time between customers, I often sit, there's like a bench at the back, and the cafe itself is in front with the tables, where I can sit. It's slightly elevated. It's great. You can keep an eye on everybody. But I can also sit and pack chocolate. Everything that we do is by hand. And so I can sit and do my little bit of foil origami around the chocolate, which I love that kind of thing anyway. does something with my hands, which is really lovely. And that kind of stills my mind, but it also means I can see what's happening. And it is a completely different energy when I do that. And I can see and sense the people responding to that. And that's when I have the best days. That's when I have the days where I have so many lovely interactions, that whether it's been 3 words or 30 minutes of chatting to somebody, whether it's been that somebody's come in and you can feel the weight of the, having a bad day, or just feeling flat, or the weather's horrible, and whatever it is, they come in one kind of energy. And then by the time they leave, okay, coffee and cake always helps, it's difficult to be really grumpy when you just had a slice of lovely cake or some nice chocolates. But it is more about the space. And more than one of our regular customers who've been going to the cafe for years before I was there, have said, that people come back because of you, don't you? It's not just obviously the quality of what we sell is, primary. Maybe it's not primary. It's interesting that. Maybe it's not actually. But that's what brings people in the first time that they come in. But what brings people back is this energy of presence, attentiveness. In German, it's Aufmerksamkeit. And even things like I'll be, in the back with, behind the counter or something, and I'll hear somebody coughing a bit slightly more than one would expect, and they might just have a coffee in front of them or something, and I will often take a glass of water and, won't say anything. I'll just pop the glass of water down as quietly as I can. And people will say, oh, danke für die Aufmerksamkeit. And it just means thank you for your attention, for being so attentive. And in my experience, that's the difference between what makes a good experience in a business and a bad experience as well, whether that's transactional, you're going into a cafe, or you're going to buy clothes, or God knows what, and a good experience and a bad experience, and someone else that is completely in their own little world. Yes, they go through the motions of getting the coffee that you want, getting the cake that you want, but there is absolutely nothing behind it. Their head is elsewhere, and the minute that they're done, they go back to, I don't know, sitting on the phone, and the energy stream is sucked into that, and I see it all the time, and I really experience it as that kind of, as the person serving, and it's amazing, and it's really transformational. That's the stuff that changes lives. It sounds like a grand statement. It sounds like a really grand statement to make, but it really is. I believe in this kind of theory of the ripples in the pond, that you never know how one interaction with somebody is going to then ripple out and affect others that you may never meet. So that is the other side of attention in ADHD. If we are passionate about something, if we love something, if we believe in it, whether it's whatever it is, our ability to hold that in our focus and give every cell of our being and every ounce of energy to it is really transformational. It really can transform not only our lives, but the lives of others. And God knows we need that. God knows we need that in this day and age. Everything that we have, this thing that I'm recording on, this phone, my computer, the TV, everything in our world is designed to draw our attention. It's designed to pull our attention in so that ultimately it can be monetized and people can get rich off it. It's the ultimate kind of consumerist tool, you know, and tool of control, and that's a whole other subject. And it's never been more so, never been more so. It's rare that the vast majority of people go through the day and through their entire lives, unfortunately, very, very sadly, never having their attention on the here and now and the present moment, never having that. And that's an absolutely torturous way to live. And that was certainly true for me for many, many years. And learning that the only place I was going to find any sense of peace or any sense of completeness, any sense of wholeness, that I was going to be able to move away from this sense of constantly running, constantly looking for something else to draw my attention, to entertain me, to take my, God knows, to take my mind off stuff, to whatever it was, you know, this sense of lack, this hole inside. When I learned that actually the only thing that releases me from that prison, because it's a prison, absolute torture, is just to be here and now and slow this down, or not get so hooked. Thoughts will come, the mind will do its thing, our history will come into our focus, will something that we see or something someone says will trigger that script in us, that preconditioned part of us that is the veil through which we see and experience the world the vast majority of the time. However, and that's okay, that is part of the person, the personality, that's not lost, that doesn't go once you realize that there is a deeper another way to be in the world. That isn't lost, it's not. And you don't want to lose that, because that is also what forms how you can inform, and especially difficult experiences can inform how you respond to the world. So there's all of that all stays. But you don't get so hooked on it. And that's the thing, you know, that I'm able now to enjoy that ability to attend to people or to a situation without all of the baggage of the story behind it. And that is life-changing. Life-changing. It's not the same kind of attention as usually precedes a gossip session, or, you know, you're sitting with someone and someone walks in, or I don't know, or something pops up on I don't know, you know, someone, let's just use that as a scenario. Sitting with somebody over coffee or whatever, someone walks in and you see their attention, as in their focus, go to that person. We often do, because it's, you know, nothing quite as good as people watching. But that is swiftly followed a split second later with a judgment. Whether that's a spoken judgment in the form of, oh my God, have you seen that? Or, you know, that horrible habit that we have of slipping into gossip and judgment about people that we don't even know. Or even if we do know them, you know, we think we know them. You don't know. You do not know. You have no idea what experience of this person, how they're, what they're going through. No idea. You might think you do. You have no idea. And that's very different. That's not attention in the pure sense of bringing the energy of attention to a situation and to what you encounter in it, be it people, plants, cats, whatever it is. So that's the kind of attention that I try and cultivate now, is spacious awareness. Maybe awareness is the word as much of as attention. And you know, as someone with ADHD who has got butterfly brain, you've seen it on a few of my videos where I'll be mid-sentence and then something exciting will happen over here and whoop, I'm gone. But I do come back. But you also see it's okay, because that then has my full attention, and that's really different. Sorry, not difficult. It's really different to, it means I see things, I notice things. And then I've got half a chance from that place, critically, I've got half a chance of having a right response to the situation, to whatever arises in my life. It's only from that place that I have half a chance of having a inspired response, as opposed to a conditioned response, which never helps. Never, never, never helps. You know, even the where you've tried something in the past, and if there's a problem arisen and you've applied this to this response or reaction to the problem, and it provided a solution in that moment, even repeating that in another situation is never going to have the same result, if you are not present in that moment, because no two moments are ever the same. No two moments are ever the same. So it is vitally important to try and allow your awareness to, or your attention to, be there without all of that preconditioned judgment behind it. I had no idea where this video was going to go. I thought I was going to talk about, I don't know what I thought, but that's the most important thing I've learned in my life. Beyond anything else, beyond any facts, figures, knowledge, conceptual information, the most important, life-changing, vital, life-enriching, transformational thing I've learned through experience and through spiritual teachings, and looking deeper in myself and in the world, is attention to the moment as it unfolds, without the story and adding story and drama to it myself. The unfiltered attention, that's the key to everything. It's the key. And it feels totally different, that energy, to how I did at the beginning of the video, where I was working out of this. What do we talk about? What's interesting? And I have no idea whether this is of interest to was this. An interest might be the wrong word because it's difficult to talk about. It's not like a thrilling story. Although I do have a couple of thrilling stories that I do want to share. But this really isn't, and it's not really where I thought it was going to go. But it is the place that I need to be. So, yeah. You might be able to hear that buzzing next door. That's my lovely partner making his yogurt and very tentatively using the mixer because he knows that I'm filming here, so he's only doing little bits at a time. Anyway, please do comment if it resonates at all. I would love to hear from some of you. Even if it doesn't resonate, you know. And I'll just keep making the videos and try and keep the momentum going. Just focusing on one at a time. That's it. Thank you for listening. If you are, thank you for watching. Thank you for being there. It means a lot. Okay. Hope to see you soon.